As usual, we'll start with a question that's come in from our global family joining us through the wonderful technology on Facebook or YouTube or so many different channels. So we take a question that's come from them, and then we'll open it up to any question that anyone here may have. How do you deal with the guilt and regrets, the could have, would have, should haves, after the sudden loss of a loved one with whom you have had a complicated relationship? This is about a parent, but it could be about anyone. Whenever we lose a loved one, it's the water fountain. About 2 minutes after getting turned off, it does that. So it's always an interesting balance, because we love to have the water flow. It's beautiful over this beautiful new wall. And yet, in satsang, it's so loud that then you can't hear anything. So we have to turn it off, but then we get this after a couple minutes. Then it goes away. Like most things in life, the momentary, and it's always, whenever it makes that noise, it's always a great teaching, because when we get in life these little bumps, frustrations, annoyances, something didn't go exactly our way, there's suddenly out of the blue this loud noise. You don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, I know, but you don't know, because I hear it all the time. And this happens in life also. Things arise, they're unexpected, they're frustrating, they interrupt us. We don't know what it is, how long it's going to last. It's a beautiful teaching, because it reminds us to just stay anchored and grounded, note it. Eventually it will pass. In this case, it passes very quickly. In other cases, something may take a little while. But not to allow ourselves to be completely pulled off of our center because of it. Otherwise, it's very easy. You're sitting in a beautiful satsang. Suddenly there's this noise. And you see how quickly and easily it is for all of the attention to go to the noise of the water machine. And this is how life is. You could be in the middle of so many beautiful, beautiful moments. And how we get so easily distracted. How we get pulled off our center so quickly, so easily. And so it's a beautiful reminder whenever they remember to turn it off only at the very last minute, so we get that sound. It's a beautiful reminder to all of us. Oh yeah, there's always distractions. There's always something unexpected. But our center, our grounding, our anchoring is here within us. And how not to be distracted. So, the loss in this case of a parent, but I would say of any loved one. There's always a sense of could have, should have. Whether it's something we should have done to keep them from dying. Very frequently with death, there's a lot of guilt, as though somehow I should have, could have protected them, saved them, helped them. So there's that a lot. And even if there isn't any guilt around the actual death, there's guilt about, I didn't tell them how much I loved them. I wasn't kind enough. I yelled, whatever. And this is really common. It happens all the time. Now, like with any disease, the very best way to deal with these sorts of things is prevention. This is why our spiritual teachers and gurus and saints and sages remind us, live every moment like it could be your last. We don't know. The roof of this jhopadi could fall. Ganga could rise up and sweep us all away. The earth could open in a sinkhole or an earthquake and suck us all in. One neuron in your brain could misfire or leak. You have a stroke. You have an aneurysm. Something happens. Or some blood vessel in the heart goes awry, a heart attack. So many things can happen. There's no guarantee. So the first way is, number one, prevention. Live every moment, not decadently, not hedonistically, not like, oh yeah, there's no tomorrow, cello, eat, drink, and be merry. But live every moment knowing that if in this moment you were face to face with death, that yes, of course, there would be a sense of, oh, I would have liked to see another sunset. I would have liked to hug my loved ones one more time. This, of course, is also normal, and it's beautiful. It means we love living. We would love to smell more flowers, hear more beautiful music, see more sunrises and sunsets. But nonetheless, we should be prepared in every moment that if we did find ourselves face to face with death, that there wouldn't be a regret of, I should have, in our life. How have we lived? Have we lived with compassion? Have we lived with truth? Have we lived with love? Have we lived in service, in devotion, in wisdom? So this is the preventative aspect. So that whether it's your death you're suddenly face to face with or a loved one's, either way, you haven't done something that you regret or not done something that you should have. But sometimes we're not able to prevent because we only find ourselves asking the question after it's happened. So when that has happened, the loss of the loved one has happened, there is guilt. Well, the first thing we do is we realize this guilt serves no purpose. Guilt never brought back a loved one. No one ever rose from the dead and said, oh, you feel guilty? Okay, no problem. I'll give you another try. We can do this one again. Never happens. We cannot rewind history. So we realize, number one, this is useless. It serves no purpose. Number two, we use it as a lesson as we move forward in our life to not let things go that we know we should be doing, to not live in ways that we know we should not be living in. And then third, we realize that that loved one, even though their bodies are no longer here, their soul, their spirit, their essence is here, and we can still speak to them. We can still speak to them. We don't only hear through the very physical tympanic membrane of our eardrum and it vibrates in a certain way and then we hear. Okay? That's how we hear sound waves in the atmosphere. They come in, vibrates, the little hairs. There's a whole beautiful process of actually how sound is processed. But have you ever looked at someone you love and known what they want to say even when they don't say it? Right? Do we really need words with our loved ones? We know it. Both ways, the good and the bad. You may say, "What's wrong? Are you angry?" And they say, "Nothing." But you know. You know something is up. And similarly, they look at you in a certain way and they don't have to say, "I love you." You feel it, you know it. Or they've done something and they're sorry, but maybe their ego doesn't let them say, "I'm sorry." But you know it, you feel it, you know they're sorry. So we don't rely on our physical ear to hear what our loved ones are saying. And in the same way, we don't have to use our physical mouth to communicate with our loved ones. Our eyes can tell everything. So tell them. Tell them how you feel. Be honest. Be open. Share with them. And know that they can hear you. You can speak with your mouth, speak out loud, or speak inside yourself, either way. They can hear you either way. But I find that it works better if we speak out loud. Not that they need it like that, they can hear it either way. But it helps us understand that we have spoken, that we have given them the message, whatever we want to say. So speak to them, speak out loud, and they will hear you. And you'll know they've heard you in your spirit, in your essence, in your soul. You'll know they've heard you. So it's never too late. It's better, ideally, do it while they're still alive. But if you haven't been able to, don't worry at all. They absolutely can still hear you. Speak it. Share it. Tell them. Does anyone here have any questions? Yes.
Ma'am, I have two questions.
Okay, let's start with one.
Interrelated, both are interrelated.
Sure.
How to deal with the decisions which are for lifetime, but as before taking the decision, you thought they are right for you. But once you have taken the decision, you are feeling that you can't deal with the decision and you can't live with the decision. But they are for the lifetime and it's too difficult to change them for you. So how to deal with that? And the second one is if you're surrounded with some negative peoples and how to deal with them, because they are you are becoming like them, and your body and your language and everything, your nature is going with them only. So how to deal with this thing?
Okay. So I'm going to take them actually as two separate questions. Because negative people is something we all deal with. And decisions that we've made that we regret is also frequently something we've all experienced. So, number one, decisions that you've made for your life that you now wish you hadn't. Well, the first thing is to really ask yourself, is this really for life? Do I really have no way out? There are things that we think are for life, that are supposed to be for life, but that the truth is we've got some freedom. Things like marriages. Now, I'm certainly not saying that when your spouse does something you don't like that you give up and say, forget it, I'm done. But there are situations. There are absolutely circumstances, moments in which we know this was not the right decision. Now, what I would say is, unless you're being physically harmed, if you're being physically harmed, you know it immediately that it was the wrong decision. And that's when you need to make a different decision. But if you're not being physically harmed, I would say, give yourself lots of time. Think it over 100 times. Then think it over 100 times again. Then get advice from every mentor you have, every wise person you know, about how you can make it work. Because marriages are very difficult. They're very difficult. They trigger a lot in us. There's a whole yoga around marriage. Not easy. But no one ever said it was supposed to be easy. And so if you find yourself in a marriage that you thought, this is just going to be like a 80-year honeymoon, and you find that actually there's some work to be done. There's some compromises. There's some sacrifices. That your buttons get pushed and it doesn't feel good. Well, take those as an opportunity to grow. That's why marriage is a yoga. It's why we speak about grihast ashram, not grihast jail. Right? It's an ashram. It's an ashram. It's a spiritual experience. And it is supposed to be used as a spiritual experience. Growing, learning, compromising, learning the greatest lesson that a marriage teaches us, I think, is the opportunity to choose peace and to choose love in any circumstance. Usually we're very conditional with our love and our peace. Someone is nice to us, we love them. They're not nice to us, we don't love them anymore. They're nice to us, we're peaceful. They're not nice to us, we are not peaceful. But in marriage, that usually tends to go up with a real regular basis. Up and down, up and down. And so it gives you the opportunity to realize my love and my peace do not have to be dependent on what this other person is doing. I can find love within me. Even if that person is acting in a silly way or acting in a way that I don't like, I can still choose love. I can choose peace. And that's the greatest lesson. Because even if you get divorced, there will still be things in life that happen that aren't what you want. There still will be people in your life who don't act the way you want them to. And if you have learned to choose love and peace, that will serve you in every relationship. But, again, sometimes there are circumstances, there are people, and it is just not meant to be. It just doesn't work. And you try and you try and you try again and you try again. And then you try for the children. And then you keep trying. And it just isn't meant to be. And it's making you miserable. Well, again, divorce should never be an easy choice. It should never be the first choice. And one of the things that I love so much about Indian culture, I come from America where there's like a 60% divorce rate or something, and so many people are on their third, fourth, fifth marriages and they're still miserable. And yet, that doesn't mean that every single marriage that ever took place on the soil of India was meant to be, and the right one. And that no one, for any reason, ever should have a good reason to separate. But that's something you're going to have to ask yourself. Don't do it just because it's easy. Don't do it just because living together is making you struggle and learn and accept in ways that you're not used to. That is the yoga of relationship. But if you find, as years go by, not weeks, not months, don't give up so quickly. But if you find that as years go by, and again, this is only if you're not being physically harmed. If you're being physically harmed, I wouldn't let a day go by. But if you're not, and you find that after some years have gone by, and even as you grow, even as you work, it's still not happening. I don't think there's anything wrong in recognizing this was a mistake. Because then what it gives you is the rest of your life with an opportunity to create something new. But again, this is where it gets really tricky, because the same ego that gets triggered by the first one, the same ego that doesn't like to compromise, that doesn't like to sacrifice, you carry that into your next relationship. And if you haven't learned to work with that, then you're just going to be miserable in your second one as well. Because there is always compromise, there's always sacrifice, it's always a yoga, a dance. So you're going to have to decide. You've done your work, you've really done your work, and you just know this isn't right. Okay. Mistakes happen. I know there will be people in this country who disagree with me, but from my perspective, I don't think that there's anything wrong or sinful or shameful in admitting this doesn't work. We've really tried, and it doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, each of us is not able to actually live the truth of who we're supposed to be. And so we're gonna have the courage to do what society isn't gonna like, the neighbors aren't gonna like. But we're gonna do it because our lives are very precious. So that's a decision you're gonna have to make. And again, as I said, think 100 times, then think 100 times again. Then talk to every wise person you know. Get as much guidance and support as you can, especially people who know both of you. And keep trying. And then, at least you'll know we've really tried our best. We've really tried our best. And sometimes that best just isn't enough. Sometimes it's not meant to be. And that's also okay. And then in terms of dealing with people who are negative, this is a great challenge that we all face, because unfortunately there's far too many people who are negative. It's a defense mechanism. In psychology, we speak about defense mechanisms as those that the ego develops to protect ourselves. So if I am very fearful, let's say that I am never going to really make it in my career, that I'm never going to be successful. Let's say I've got a complex inside and I'm fearful that I'll never be able to succeed. Well, in advance, as I read the classified advertisements, I'll say, "Nee, ye wala tik nahi hai, ye bhi tik nahi hai. Nah, I don't like that." Maybe I'll go on interviews, and even before I get an answer from them, I'll say, "Nee, I didn't like this interviewer. The office feng shui isn't right, vastu sab wrong. I didn't like the way the secretary looked at me." whatever it may be. But we will stay negative as a defense mechanism so that if they don't accept us, we can say, well, though I didn't want it anyway. I knew it wasn't right for me. A try, they didn't choose me. Now I don't have to even go through the trouble of telling them I don't want the job. So it serves as a defense mechanism. Similarly around people. If I am worried about what people will think about me, if I've got an internal complex that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not full and whole and beautiful and divine and amazing, and I'm worried that people won't like me, that I won't fit in, well, I will, in order to preempt that, I'll become negative. So I enter, let's say, a new situation, a new school, a new workplace. Immediately, instead of trying to make friends, I'll become negative. Ye wala aisa hai, ye aisi hai, this one is this one is that. I don't like anybody. Because that has just prevented me from feeling badly if no one invites me to have lunch with them. If they don't invite me to go for coffee with the team after work. If there's a party and I'm not invited. I've already decided I don't like them. Mujhe kisi se lena dena nahi hai kuch bhi. Then I don't care. Then I say, well, obviously they didn't invite me. I don't even talk to them. So negativity is a defense mechanism. We become negative about people, places, situations, opportunities that inside we are worried are not going to work out for us. Because it's a lot easier to be negative and hate it from the beginning than to actually give it your heart and then have them reject you. So we reject it to begin with. So when someone is negative, the first thing is feel compassion for them. Recognize that they must be in so much pain inside. Only people who are in pain inside talk negatively about other people. People who are peaceful inside, they don't have the time, they don't have the interest. Their brain doesn't even go there to negative gossips and this and that. So if someone is being negative, you can be sure they are in pain. Feel compassion for them. Recognize that it's not about you, it's about them. And try from your side to spread as much love and positivity as you can. You can certainly, by the way, have rules in your relationships. You know, like we have no smoking zones, drug-free zones, right? To protect people. No smoking inside because other people have to breathe it and then they die. In America, you can't smoke within, I think it's 15, 20 feet, something like that, of a building. Because the smoke goes inside also when the doors open or windows are open. So to protect people, someone wants to smoke, fine, that's up to them. But they cannot do it in a place where it harms other people. In the same way, we need to develop kind of no negativity zones. Make yourself a sign, no negativity. When someone starts to become negative, and you just point to your sign. And if they keep speaking, walk away. Depending on who the relationship is. If it's someone you love, a real simple big hug might actually do the trick. Because if someone has become negative because they are fearful, and you can just give them a really big hug, like, I'm here with you. Nothing to be afraid of. It's all going to be fine. That might actually work, depending on who they are and who the relationship is. But if that doesn't work, there is no reason that you need to get your energetic field sneezed on, coughed on. It's like if someone is sick, right? You expect them social distanced, right? To protect us. They should wear their mask so they don't get us sick. We have a right to protect ourselves. If someone around us is coughing, sneezing, we have a right to say, "Jera apne mask pehno." Whether it's COVID, whether it's just the flu, whatever it may be, you don't want it. And in the same way, you have the right to protect your heart and your energetic field, just like to protect your immune system. Okay? Beautiful. Does anyone else have a question? Yes.
Sadhviji, thank you for that. There are so many people who who drain you on a day-to-day. Negative people, others who are emotionally very needy, people around you who may have needs, physical, emotional, others. On a day-to-day basis, how do you decide that, how do you decide this bridge between empathy or apathy? You could not look at them and still feel pretty peaceful in an apathy way. Or you can feel empathy. Is there a guide?
Beautiful, beautiful. Empathy or apathy. I love that. So, empathy doesn't necessarily have to be something that makes you miserable along with them. Empathy is something that serves the other person because they know you are with them. And it serves you because it gives you an opportunity to be one with them. But let's say that they are negative. Let's take that example. Somebody's being very negative. Well, your empathy with them doesn't necessarily have to be empathic with the nonsense and negative gossip they're spewing. Be empathic on the deeper level of their fear. So if, let's say you work someplace, new person comes on the job, or maybe not new, either way, and they start being very negative about the workplace, about everybody. Empathy doesn't mean that you say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I feel you. Wo theek nahi tha, ye theek nahi hai. Be empathic with the pain in them that is causing them to be so negative. Can you be empathic with the fear they have that something isn't right about them, that maybe they're going to lose the job, or that they're not being appreciated, or whatever their own internal issue is? The negativity is just the defense mechanism. So be empathic with really where they are suffering. And if you don't know, then just be empathic with a fellow suffering human being. Because you may not be suffering in the same way they are, but surely you know suffering. And so we can all be empathic with someone's suffering, even if we don't know that particular type, even if we haven't experienced that particular type of suffering. So be empathic with that. We should never be apathetic. I cannot think of a situation where apathy is a virtue. But there are moments where we become simply a witness, where we don't need to be emotionally engaged, but we are we're able to witness them. We don't have to become emotionally engaged, but we see, we recognize, we don't run from it, we don't cut ourselves off from it. Because apathy is cutting ourselves off. Apathy is I don't feel. Witness is I am aware. I am aware. This is happening. I see it. But I don't have to engage with it emotionally. And that's another practice. It's like in our meditation, a thought arises. We don't engage. It's not like every time a thought of sadness arises while we're meditating, suddenly we become very empathic with it. We just notice it. And then we go back to our breath. In the same way in our relationships sometimes, we just notice it. Okay, this is happening. That person's temper tantrum is happening. I don't need to engage, but I also don't need to cut myself off. I just need to bring my awareness back to my grounding, my anchoring. And then it becomes a beautiful, engaged spiritual practice. Wonderful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. There will not be satsang tomorrow. We have our Honorable President of India joining us tomorrow, and so we will be celebrating his presence. But we will have satsang again on day after tomorrow, on Monday. Have a beautiful evening, a beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world. And so much love to you all.